Look at the back of your hand. Whatever color you see there, you have probably been told it means something, that it puts you in a group, that it says something about who you are. So here is a question that sounds simple and is not. Why is your hand that color? Most people have an answer ready. Hot places, dark skin. Cold places, light skin. Sunshine. Simple. But the real answer is far stranger than that, because your skin color is not really a color at all. It is a setting, a dial turned up or down by one single force. The sunlight falling on the ground where your ancestors happened to stand. And that dial has been turned back and forth so many times that it tells you almost nothing about how closely two people are related. Start here. For most of our history, your ancestors had fur. Under it, their skin was pale, like a chimpanzee's today. Then, over 1,000,000 years ago, they lost that coat. They were walking further, hunting in open sun, overheating, and for the first time, naked skin met the equator. That is a problem, because sunlight is not just light. It is radiation. An anthropologist named Nina Jablonski built her career on this. Working with the geographer George Chaplin, she mapped the skin tones of native populations against satellite measurements of ultraviolet radiation. The two maps matched, almost line for line across every continent. So dark skin is sunscreen. You might have guessed that, but why your body needs it so desperately is what surprised everyone.
The obvious answer is skin cancer. And yes, UV causes it. But evolution is brutally practical. Skin cancer usually arrives late, after you have already had your children. Too late to matter much. So Jablonski went looking for something that hurts you earlier. She found it in your blood. There is a nutrient called folate. Folate builds a growing fetus, its spine, its brain, in the first weeks of pregnancy. And ultraviolet light destroys it. Sunlight passing through pale skin breaks folate down right there in the vessels beneath the surface. Follow that. A pale-skinned person under equatorial sun is quietly being drained of the one nutrient that builds babies. Pregnancies fail. The line stops. But melanin, the pigment in skin, absorbs that light before it ever reaches the blood. A sunshade built into you. So at the equator, the dial turned all the way up. Dark skin was not an accident. It was the difference between having descendants and not. And for hundreds of thousands of years, that was the whole human story. Every human being on Earth had dark skin, all of us. So what changed? You walked north. Up north, the sun sits low. Half the year, it barely gets going at all. The UV that was trying to kill you at the equator is suddenly scarce. And you need some of it, because there is one thing your body cannot make without ultraviolet light: vitamin D. And vitamin D is what pulls calcium into your bones. Without it, bones go soft. That is a disease called rickets, bowed legs, a twisted spine. And here is the cruel part. A girl with rickets grows a deformed pelvis, and a deformed pelvis in a world with no surgeons means she and her baby die in childbirth. A doctor named William Loomis laid this out back in the 1960s. Dark skin under a dim northern sky quietly starves you of vitamin D. So the dial turned back down. Not because light skin is better, because in that place, under that sun, it let more babies live. That is the whole mechanism. Too much UV destroys your folate.
Too little UV starves you of vitamin D. Your skin color is a compromise between two ways of dying. But now comes the part that undoes everything. Light skin is astonishingly recent. In 2018, researchers at the Natural History Museum in London, Selena Brace and Ian Barnes among them, pulled DNA from a 10,000-year-old skeleton found in a cave in Somerset. They call him Cheddar Man. Modern British people are partly descended from his population. They read his genes. And the man living in Britain 10,000 years ago had dark brown to black skin and blue eyes. Read that again. In Britain, for almost the entire time humans have lived in Europe, Europeans were dark-skinned. The pale gene variants swept through the continent in just the last few thousand years, around the time of farming.
And it did not happen only once. Light skin evolved separately in Europe and in East Asia through different genes. The same answer arrived at twice by two populations that were not closely related when it happened. Then, in 2017, a geneticist named Sarah Tishkoff studied skin color across African populations and found the widest range of skin tones anywhere on Earth. Not one African color, many, and several of the variants that make skin lighter turned out to be ancient and African, older than our species' journey out of Africa. So the deepest variation in human skin color is not between the continents, it is inside Africa. Which brings you to what the geneticist Richard Lewontin measured back in 1972. He found that around 85% of all human genetic difference sits between individuals within the same population. Only a small fraction tracks the continental groupings we call races. Two people with the same skin tone from opposite sides of the world can be more distantly related to each other than either is to someone who looks nothing like them. Because skin color is not a family tree. It is a weather report. It tells you about the ultraviolet light where your ancestors lived. That is what it is for. That is all it is for. A few genes out of 20,000, turning one dial in the outermost layer of you. We built empires, laws, and centuries of cruelty on top of a sunscreen setting. So look at the back of your hand again. That color is not a category, and it is not a verdict. It is a record. A note your ancestors' bodies wrote about the sky above the ground where they stood. Turn the dial one way, and you shield a growing baby from a fierce sun. Turn it the other, and you catch enough weak light to build a bone. That is the entire difference. Your skin is not who you are. It is only where the light found you.